All right, welcome back to the 12 steps. Today we're going to talk about price presentations, step 9. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe, and don't hesitate to leave me comments if there's anything I could do that would make these classes better. So let's talk about price presentation. You have finished, you've done your pre-close, you've done your measurements, you've put your prices together, and you're now ready to present price to the homeowner. You have your price presentation sheet. Some divisions, product divisions, they look slightly different, but there's a sheet for price presentation regardless of what division you're in. You have your iPad. With one click, you've prepared your quote, and you've prepared a 1-year number, which is added 11% to what one click is. So you'll be at 111% of list as you present your first number. You're in presentation mode, so all your individual itemized items, so much for bench, so much for grid, so much for this, those are gone away. We don't want to get into a conversation with a homeowner about why grids cost this or why a shelf costs that. We just want to list all the work and have one price down at the bottom, which is what presentation mode allows you to do. It allows you to use the iPad to present the order, to let them see that professional computer-generated quote without having itemized pricing and just having one flat total at the bottom. And you have your talking pad. You have either your spiral notebook or your legal pad. You use white paper. You don't use the blue. You don't use the yellow. You use white paper. I use a black pen. I don't use blue ink. I don't use red ink. It's always a black pen. And I am prepared to do my price presentation. So a couple of comments about where we're at in the demonstration before we actually get into price presentation. First of all, this is the highest anxiety moment for your homeowner. I want you to think about a homeowner at this point in the presentation as a 10-year-old child. So who is a 10-year-old child? A 10-year-old child is a pretty smart person. They've started to figure the world out. They know there's no Santa Claus. There's no big bunny putting money under their pillow for teeth. There's bigger things in the world than they quite comprehend, but they're starting to figure it out. And that 10-year-old child has finally gotten permission from their parents to make their first large purchase in life, maybe a skateboard or a PlayStation, something of a few $100s that's their first significant purchase. So they've gone to that piggy bank that their grandfather gave them 3 or 4 years ago for their birthday, the old-fashioned kind that you have to break open. It doesn't have a plug in the bottom. And they broke it open and they counted all the money they'd saved up from Christmas and birthday and chores and that kind of thing. And they've added it all up and they've got their entire worldly wealth in their hand. And their mom or their dad is taking them down to this store where they're going to go up to a complete stranger, give them every penny that they have in the world, and hope that the thing they get in return lives up to their dreams and expectations. I want you to think about the anxiety level of what that 10-year-old is going through right then. And what is the parent doing? The parent's walking them through it. It's okay, Johnny. He's a nice man. You've been wanting this for a while. You've saved up. You're going to really enjoy your new skateboard. Give the nice man the money and you're going to have your skateboard and take it home. And the parent is counseling and calming the child down. That's you at this moment. This is not something where you're butting heads. You are a counselor. You are coaching them. You are guiding them through this process. You are an advisor to give them the information it takes for them to make a purchase. If you've done a masterful presentation and they want it, need it, and have to have it, then closing shouldn't have any stress or pressure to it at all. It should be you merely advising them and guiding them to the decision-making process and then coming to the conclusion that they want to take what you have with them or have it put onto their home. So that's the first thing. We're going to think about the anxiety level of the homeowner. Second thought I want to leave you with before we actually get into what price presentation is. Superstar performers. Remember we talked about average Joe and then we talked about superstar back in orientation. Superstar performers, when they get into the close, have been talking nice and calmly and at a smooth pace throughout the presentation, that bubbling enthusiasm at the right moments. And then when they get into the close, they drop it down just a little bit more, a little bit calmer, a little bit slower, a little bit quieter. Your homeowner is not going to become bored when they're talking about their own money. You talk too slow and too soft during the presentation, they might get bored. They will not get bored while talking about their money. Average Joes get into the close and their voice goes up and they're talking a little bit faster and they're a little more excited, and they stay that way through the whole close. And they transfer that anxiety and that angst to their homeowner. You know, there have been studies done that prove that if your heart rate goes up in the close, your client's heart rate goes up as well. You have to maintain that cool, calm demeanor. You need to actually consciously step it down just a little bit and then maintain that nice, calm, smooth demeanor, that nice conversational tone, that taking your time throughout the closing process. You're an advisor. This is not something where you're butting heads. You're not trying to close them. You're trying to guide them and inform them of the information they need to make this good decision. So that was the thoughts I want to share with you before we go into price presentation. Now let's actually talk about what we're doing in price presentation. Because when you look at the close, it breaks up into two parts. The first is the price presentation, where we are going to review the order and give them the 1 year and then explain some specifics to them about financing options and money options. And we're going to gather information from them. And then once we do that, we're actually going to move into the next step, step 10, where it's qualification of incentives in the major close, where we're actually going to qualify them for those programs that are going to save them money and have that conversation. And then we're going to actually attempt to close. And if we can't close on our own, then we're going to go to the higher authority close. So when you've called them back to the table, okay, folks, I'm ready whenever you are, and they've come back to the table, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to give you an intro to price presentation. It's 4 bullet points, and you literally say it just like 4 bullet points. Okay, folks, I want you to understand that this is a conversation, not a negotiation. I'm completely transparent. I'm an open book. I've got a lot of information to go over with you, and then I'm going to qualify you for as many programs as I can to save you money. Okay? Let me say it again. Folks, this is a conversation, not a negotiation. I'm completely transparent. I'm an open book. I've got a lot of information to go over with you, and then I'm going to qualify you for as many programs as I can to save you money. All right? You're saying all 4 of these things, especially the last one about qualifying them for programs to save them money, because as soon as you put the price in front of them, they're going to forget all about that. And you have to say it so that when you do start giving them incentives to lower that price after you put a bigger number in front of them, it doesn't look like you were doing something shady or slick where you tried to close them at a bigger number and then only went to the lower number when you couldn't do it. If you say it now, you're able to remind them, no, remember, I told you I was going to qualify you for programs to save money. Didn't I tell you that before we even started? And they go, yeah, you sure did. And that way you save your credibility. So you say those 4 things. John and Mary, it's not a negotiation. It's a conversation. I'm completely transparent here. I've got a lot of information to go over with you, and then I'm going to qualify you for as many programs as I can to save you money. Sound good? Great. And then I take the iPad, and this is one last time to read the order, describe the installation, and tell them all the things they're getting. Don't think because you've said it 3 or 4 times already, they still remember. They wouldn't even be able to tell you the name of your window or the name of your shower at this point, and they just heard it 10 or 15 minutes ago. So say it again. Describe the installation again. Describe the installers again. Describe how our people are going to take care of their property. Describe what they're getting. Describe the options they picked and what they're going to do for them. Tell them one last time. And then when you're done, you get to the bottom, that 1 year number, you're going to take your price presentation sheet. And the only thing you have on this price presentation sheet right now is you have a year date out. So if you're there on August 21st of 2023, this says August 21st of 2024. And you're going to take that number that's on that iPad and you're going to write it on that price presentation sheet, $24,382. And once you put that number out there, you're not going to say another word. You need to give them time to process this number. If you learn to wait for them to talk once a month after an extended period of silence, occasionally somebody's going to look at you, they're going to look down at that number, and they're going to look up at you and go, well, how do we pay for it? That's called low-hanging fruit. Those are the easy ones. Don't miss those by feeling you have to fill the void. They don't hear the silence. You hear it because you want to go to the next step. You're excited. You want to find out what's going to happen. They're sitting here digesting everything you told them about the company and their home and this product, and now they finally have a number. Don't expect them to grasp it in 5 or 10 seconds. Just relax. Now, what we're not doing is don't make the mistake of thinking this is a tug of war here. It's not. We're going to assume the close all the way through. If they need it, want it, and have to have it, then literally all you're going to do is walk them through a process that naturally concludes with a buying decision. And anything they tell you other than yes, we're going to hear as a no, because we're collecting the no's. I have a video on YouTube that talks about counting the no's. You should watch it. It talks about how the average homeowner will not make a buying decision yes until they've said no to you on average 6 to 8 times. Some people need to tell you no 12 or 15 times. No being anything other than a yes. I need to think about it to no. We need a couple days. I need to get other estimates. I've got to talk to my brother. This is a big decision. All those things are not a yes. So we're going to give the person time to digest here. We're going to say things like, when they say, well, that's a lot of money. Don't make the mistake if somebody says that's a lot of money or we can't afford it, of assuming you know what they mean by that statement. What I mean by that is, don't take your perception of that's a lot of money and assume that that same definition that goes through your head is the definition going through their head. You need to understand what they mean when they make that comment. So if somebody says that's a lot of money, go, what do you mean by that, John? Or compared to what, Mary? If they go, we can't afford it, you go, why do you say that? Or what makes you think that? You need to understand the thoughts behind their statements. Don't think you know what they're thinking. Listen to what they say and then find out the thoughts going through their head. Get them to talk to you. Get them to talk to you. Now, there are a couple of exercises you might do. I'm going to teach you several word tracks. There are closing word tracks. There are objection word tracks. And you can use these closes and these word tracks as responses anywhere through this. I'm not going to go into them now because I want to continue the price presentation. But when I give you the word tracks for those items, the 3-step value bump, the flex install, the ARIO, I'll remind you as you're listening to those word tracks that they could be plugged in anywhere. And maybe in a response from here, I might do the 3-step value bump. I might do ARIO, or I might use them later on. They're designed to be able to be plugged in anywhere in the process as a response to what the homeowner says. Also, closes are the same way. There are multiple closes. There are videos on these multiple different closes you can do. And like this would be a perfect place for the subtract, add, multiply, and divide close if the response they gave me teed up that close. So you're going to learn these different items that can be plugged in here. So I'm getting them to talk, finding out what's going through their head. I'm not getting antagonistic. I'm not trying to close them. I'm not going back and reminding them, remember how great the company is. I'm not trying to sell here. I might do certain exercises like subtract, add, multiply, and divide that talk about the value of the company, but that's a planned process that has a planned end solution. I'm not just randomly spouting things out. Now, once we've had some conversation, once we've relaxed and collected a little time and we waited for them to respond, and if they don't respond right away, you've sat there for 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to give you 2 classics that will get them to open up without you doing all the talking. One of them comes from me, and I just put on my slightly silly country boy smile, and I'll look at him and I go, I bet you thought it'd be more than that, didn't you? I bet you thought it'd be more than that, didn't you? And that'll usually get them to spark right up in conversation. Mark's classic line, if he's been sitting there for several minutes and they've not said anything, he'll sit there and go, John, Mary, I know what you're thinking. How can we do so much for so little? And the pause is critical. John, Mary, I know what you're thinking. How can we do so much for so little? And that'll get the conversation going. Another technique that'll help the conversation is a couple of times, you can't do this over and over, but a couple of times you can literally just repeat the last 3 or 4 words they said in the form of a question. Oh my gosh, well, we're not going to be able to do this until next year. You can't do it till next year? Yeah, I'm going to have to talk to my brother about this. I've got to talk to him. Need to talk to your brother? If you repeat back the end part of what they said in the form of a question, they'll feel the need to give you a further explanation because it sounds you're like, I didn't quite get it. What do you mean, John? And so they'll feel the need to justify or give you more explanation about what they were saying. It's a great way to keep that conversational floodgate open and keep them talking. Your only goal here when you first put this number out is to get as much talking out of them as you can. Not for you to be talking. Anything you say at this point is designed to keep the conversational floodgates open so that they can relieve themselves. For all of you crazy fools out there that like to watch those pimple popping shows and the doctor that lances boils and stuff, I can't stand those shows. But that's literally what you're doing here is this number in a lot of people, not everybody, but in a lot of people has created a boil or that big sensitive bump on their skin or that pimple. And it hurts when they touch it. It's all sensitive. And the more you get them talking, it's just like that pimple popping doctor who lances it and all that goo, all that mess comes out and it relieves the pressure so it's not sensitive. It doesn't hurt anymore. Get them talking. Let them relieve the pressure that's inside themselves so they relax and come back down to earth and settle back down to the table so they can hear what you're saying and talk to you. If you try to run through the clothes and just keep hammering at them and preaching at them, and you don't let them relieve that pressure internally that they're feeling, you leave that pimple or that boil all sensitive to the touch, they can't hear you. And you're not going to accomplish anything. So by getting those conversational floodgates open, play a game with yourself. How much can I get them to talk? Just get them to relax. Get them to talk. Let that pressure off. It'll totally change how things go. Now, once you've relieved the pressure, the next thing you do is you remind them, hey, folks, remember, this is your 1-year number. No matter what happens with labor costs or material costs in the next 12 months, you know you can get this project done for this. But remember, we got some more information. We got some good news here. Let me ask you a question. And remember, I'm not saying now or today. I don't want to trigger fight or flight because I still need to gather more information. So at this point, I'm going to let me ask you folks, when you decide to do this project, would you do cash or would you do finance? And I will often, even if they say we'd probably have to finance, I will often just briefly explain my cash terms for the simple sake that I want to just have this number be in front of them for a little bit. I'm not trying to rush to where I'm actually going to try and close them. That will show angst. It'll raise that energy level. Have this nice, soft, same process. Okay, so John and Mary, let me explain the 2 options to you. If you did cash, what we do is we take a third when you place the order. We take a third when we deliver materials, and we take a third when you're completely satisfied. And then if you wanted to finance, we have many options. You think you'd be doing cash or you think you'd be doing finance, John and Mary? And if they say they'd be doing cash, I want you to always remember to ask this question. And the question is, are those funds you have readily available, or do you need to go to the bank to get them? Because if they have to go to the bank to get the funds, they're not a cash customer. And then if we have to take the person who's thinking they're cash with us, but they're really going to the bank to get the money, and we want to close today, we need to say something to them that'll make them be comfortable with me moving on in the process, allowing me to show them our financing options without pissing them off because they feel like I'm trying to take them away from their bank. So how would I do that? What I would say is, folks, that's great. Let's do this. I'm going to share with you our best lending options. And then when you go to your bank, you can compare rates and terms and see who actually has the best deal for you. Doesn't that make sense? Nobody's going to argue with comparing rates and getting the best terms and deal for themselves. So that allows me to go on with showing him my financing options without him feeling like, yeah, don't go to your bank, don't do that. So I'll say it again. Folks, that's great. Why don't we do this? I'll show you our best lending options. And then when you go to your bank, you can compare terms and rates and make sure you're getting the best deal. Now, I'm still going to close today because further on, not now, no too much information in the moment. I only give them enough information that allows me to go to the next step, the next 10 minutes. I'm not trying to leapfrog and bombard them with information. But later on in the close, when we've determined a monthly investment that's comfortable for them, I'll then explain how it's about 4 to 6 weeks before we're ready to do the installation. That gives you plenty of time, John and Mary, to go check with your bank now that you know what we'll do. We'll go ahead and place the order today. If between now and installation you find your bank's got a better deal, you just hand us a check when the job's done to your satisfaction and you got your arrangement with your bank. If you find that your bank wants to charge you points or has a floating rate or wants to charge you an appraisal cost or some nonsense like that, our financing's already in place and you just sign a piece of paper when you're completely satisfied with the job and that program kicks in. That puts you in the driver's seat, John, to compare rates and go with what's best suits you. That puts you in the driver's seat, John, to compare rates and pick what best suits you. So that's how I take the person that's when I say, are those funds you have readily available, or you'll be going to the bank to get them when they say they're cash and they're going to the bank. That's how I would roll them back to having a finance conversation. But if they say we've got the funds readily available, I go, that's great. And then the next thing I need to do is I need to confirm this part right here. So a third of your order would be a little bit over $8,000. You can do with that with check, cash, or credit card. How would you do it, John? Whenever someone commits to you that they're going to give you some form of deposit or initial investment, whether it's for finance or cash, as soon as they say, yes, I can give you $3,000, $8,000, $10,000, the next question you ask them is, would you do that with check, cash, or credit card? Because if somebody says, yeah, 8,000, a little over 8,000, I think I could do that. That's not a commitment. All they're saying is, yeah, I'm comfortable with 8,000. I've probably got it, but they haven't gone and found it. But if I ask them, would you do that with check, cash, or credit card? He's actually going to think now, I would do that with the Visa card because I paid it off and I get points. I'd do that with the Visa card. And he went and found where that $8,000 is. Or he says, I'll give you a check. I'll move funds over from a savings account. We'll just write you a check. He's determined or she's determined where that money's coming from. So they have now sourced the funds. Whether it's finance or cash, anytime somebody tells you that they're going to give you a sum of money, ask them if it's check, cash, or credit card. Make them go find that cash in their head. All right, so now this person has said they're going to do cash. they have funds readily available, and they said they can do a third down on a credit card. And so I would just go over here and I would write CC and put a circle around it saying that first third is going to be with a credit card. That's his commitment or her commitment to me. That's where they said they're coming from. Now at this point, I'm going to look at them and I'm going to go, okay, folks, so we're going to do cash, do a third down. That sounds great. Now, I did promise I was going to qualify you for as many programs as I could to save you money, didn't we? And they're going to go, yes. Now, I want you to press the pause button, because what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to where we put this number in front of them. We got a reaction. We talked about it. We got that conversational floodgate open. And then we reminded them this was their 1 year number. No matter any change in labor or material costs, you can do this project anytime in the next year for this figure. You're assured of that. And then I asked them, when you do decide to do it, would you do cash or finance? And they said we would do finance. Then I want you to come over here and I want you to have a finance conversation before you talk about those incentives. Now, when you come over here and you go financing options, the first thing you're going to say is, John and Mary, we do like an initial deposit with all of our customers. Most people, and I'm going to say a third, just like here, and a lot of finance people won't have a third, but that's fine. Most people will put a third down with a check, cash, or credit card. That'd be a little over $8,000 with this order. Does that work for you? Now, some finance people will say yes, and they'll commit to that, and that's fine. But if they say, no, I don't have that kind of money, that's fine. That's what financing is for. But I now want you to anchor them. In other words, you're going to suggest a lower number, because if you say what does work for you, they're going to say nothing or $100. And that doesn't fly. That deal's not solid at all. You need them to have skin in the game. So what you're going to do is you're going to suggest a lower number. Well, that's fine, John. No pressure. What if we did something more around 4,500 or 5,000 rather than 8? Would that be a number that can work for you? And they'll often suggest now, well, Harold, I couldn't do anything over 2,000. That's fine. And then what do I ask them? Would that be check, cash, or credit card? And they say that they can do it with a check. So I'm going to write 2,000 down, and I'm going to put check, and I'm going to put a circle around it, because that's their number. Now, the next thing that I have to talk about with financing is I got to talk about some financing options. And I'm going to say, now, folks, listen, I promised you we were going to talk about some incentives to save you money. But before we get into that, I'd like to have a clearer idea of exactly how we would fit this in your budget. So if you were doing a project somewhere around this area, you'd have a choice. We do have a program of 6 and 12 months, same as cash. That's no interest and no payments. But if you're not aware of it, the same as cash programs do require you to have them completely paid off by the end of that 6 or 12 month period. If you don't, the interest goes through the roof. The interest goes to 30% back to day one on the total amount if they have just $1 in balance. But I'm not going to go through all that. I don't want to scare them. I don't want to give them a lot of thought that, oh gosh, we need to think through that and process that. And that's a lot of information, because that'll make it be hard for them to buy. I'm just going to simply go, you got to be sure you can have these balances completely paid off before the end of the time period, or the interest rate goes through the roof, as does the monthly investment. Are you in a position to be able to pay it off completely in that 6 or 12 month period? And almost everybody that's financed is going to say no. And I can put an X through this. And I'm not worried about same as cash coming back and bite me in the butt, because remember, that's the highest cost program to the company, and that impacts your commissions. And so we don't want to use those programs if at all possible. Now, if somebody was thinking about the 24-month same as cash program, which we use in our marketing, because that makes the phone ring, they're going to bring it up right here. While I'm at the 1 year number, 11% over list where I've got room to negotiate. And so they're going to say, well, I was thinking about that 24-month same as cash program. Oh, we do have that one too, John. Absolutely. I believe that's in our advertising right now in our monthly promotion. Now, that 24-month same as cash program, it's no payments, no interest as well. But you do have to have it completely paid. You're in a position to completely pay it off. And if they go yes, then what I'm going to say is, because you can't tell them we pay fees for these programs. That's against the law. You can't tell them that. You're literally breaking federal banking laws to say that. So what you say instead is, well, obviously my company would like to get our money sooner rather than later. So if, with folks that are in the great position you are that truly can pay cash at any time, I'm authorized to offer you an additional incentive of $1,500 off if you would just go back to our standard cash arrangement. And would you like to save $1,500? And they go, yes. I go, you got it. That's the way we'll set it up. And I just get the fist bump, and they just gave me a closing opportunity, and I go for the close because I'm giving them a $1,500 incentive here. I want you to think, pause this for a second. I want you to think as you get into the close that you've got a pocket full of poker chips. They're little chips, same size as a poker chip, only these are negotiating chips. And when you're negotiating during the close, you only want to spend one chip at a time. Don't throw 3 or 4 chips out on the table to just get one thing from them. You'll blow through your chips too quickly. One chip, one bit of information, one trial close, one something from them. Be frugal with those chips. So now I've either gotten 6 or 12 months same as cash. They're interested in 24. I get that off by offering an incentive. Even if they don't close here, they've agreed that with $1,500 off, we're not going to talk about the 24-month same as cash, that they'll do this. And I did that while I have the most money. I've got about $2,600, $2,700 here because I'm at 11% over to negotiate. That $1,500 doesn't even bring me down to 100%. So I'm still at my maximum commission point. I'm still good, and I got that same as cash program that can hurt me in my commissions off the table. So now at this point, I'm going to say now as far as a monthly investment, John and Mary, and I've got some programs that'll save you money, but let's just talk about this for a second to get an idea. If you were doing this down the road, you could do this at 60 months at $513 a month, or you could do it at 84 months, and that would be at $431 a month. Which one of those works best for you, the $513 a month or the $431 a month? Now, if they say $513, there's not an affordability problem, and I don't have to ask them if it fits in their budget. If they say $431, I need to ask them, does that work 12 months out of 12 months for you? Because they might have just picked it because it was the lowest number, but it's still too high. Well, no, Harold, $431 doesn't work every month. It's just the lowest one on the screen. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did up here. I'm going to anchor them. I'm going to go down about $90. I'm going to say, well, folks, we need it to be comfortable. What if I did something around $320, $330 a month? Would that work for you? That's still a little tight. Well, I don't want you to lose sleep over this. I want you to be completely excited about it, John. I don't know exactly where I can go, but let's find a number you're comfortable with. How about $290, $300? Harold, if we could get it under $275, $270 a month, we'd be okay. Let's write that down. I don't know where we're going, but let's write that down so we've got it. And I'm going to circle that because that's their number. So now I've determined $270 a month, $2,000 down with a check. I've got everything I need to make this financing project work. And I'm literally going to look at them and go, well, folks, it sounds like we've got a game plan here. Let's take a look at these incentives programs that I said I was going to qualify you for, and let's see how much they help us, okay? And we're together working on this because now we've got a game plan of where we're going to go. Let's take a look at these incentives now and see where we can get. And so we're all doing it together. If you noticed, I didn't quote interest rates here. I didn't say 60 months at this interest rate or 60 months at that interest rate. I didn't do that because a lot of people who are financing only care about the monthly investment. And if it fits in their budget, it fits in their budget. If you start talking about 7.9 versus 10.9 or 12.9, it depends on your interest rate. And, with where the Fed's at right now, 8.9 is an incredible rate. Most people are getting 9.9 and 10.9. Even if they don't know a whole lot, you just created a lot of confusion and way too much questions. And again, you're making it harder for them to decide. If there's somebody who's interested in the interest rate, they'll ask you. And then you tell them it's a simple interest with no prepayment penalty loan. Simple interest. The interest is spread out over the life of the loan, not front loaded in the beginning. If you pay it off early, you save a bunch of interest because there's time you didn't use. And there's no prepayment penalty. meaning anything you send in over the monthly number goes directly on the principal, shortening the loan and saving you money on interest you don't have to pay. And I'll get that out at some point, but I'm not quoting interest rates. And if they ask, that's fine. I can have that conversation. And I'm going to tell them, based on your credit, if you got absolutely unbelievable credit, I can probably get you an 8.9 or a 9.9, unsecured, no lien on your home, no deed of trust, nothing like that. Just your simple good name and your signature. That's it, and your good credit. And the way my credit is, I'd come back at about a 10.9 or an 11.9. I've got pretty darn good credit. But how do you rate your credit on a scale of A, B, C, or D? You can just ask them. But I'm not going to get into that conversation if they don't bring it up, because you're just creating confusion to do so. So I present the order on the iPad. I read through it. I use my price presentation sheet. That's everything that I've used that sheet for right there, is that information. I've put the number up here. I explained cash. If they were cash, they're going to do the first third of the credit card. If they said they're going to do finance, I said after the many options, I told them about 6 and 12, no interest, no payments. We got that off the board because they couldn't pay it off anytime in that period of time. We talked about a couple of financing options monthly wise. Not afraid to mention that the incentives are coming. I just want to get an idea of the budget. They give me a number that works, and then I very clearly say, well, folks, now let's see what we can do with those programs and incentives, and let's see if we can get where we're going now that we have a game plan together. And that right there is your price presentation. You've now spent some time with this number looking at them. So this is a real number. This is their 1 year number. The number they can come back anytime. That's a real number to them. You've gathered some important information. You know where you're going. And now at this point, you're ready to move into the qualification of incentives and the major close, where you use these different closes and these different game plans to actually get that commitment and save your credibility. All right? So we have now finished price presentation.